May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Okay, so it's week number 4 in our 5 weeks that we're spending in this one chapter in the Gospel of John. The lectionary just seems to go on and on and on with bread and more bread and more bread. I got an email this week from Ray Buchanan, who is a new Episcopal priest who came from this parish, and this is his first year in this lectionary preaching it. He emailed me this week and he goes, "I've run out of things to say about bread." He says, "What do you do now?" All preachers hit this point. I emailed him back and says, "Well, you make a note in your calendar the next time when year B runs around and we get to August, you take August off." And you get a supply priest and let them deal with all these week after week of Jesus saying, "I am the bread of life. I am the bread that came down." Actually, as I was planning for this summer, as I was looking at these lessons, I thought, what a great time to do something a little different with our own communion. So I spent a lot of time researching online recipes for communion bread, reading all the reviews. This one's more crumbles more than that one, because we got a lot of people who dip it in, and you don't want all the crumbs in the bottom of the wine. And I was thinking, okay, so I could bake fresh bread for communion one week, and we could use like pita bread or something. And we could do different kinds of bread during August and play with this bread idea. Until all of a sudden it hit me that I'm falling right into that same trap that the people at the beginning of the story in this chapter fell into. Jesus begins this chapter by taking 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, that simple lunch, and feeding 5,000 people, who then follow him going, "More bread, more bread, more bread. Give us bread." He says, "You're searching for the wrong thing. You ate the bread and were filled, and just, it's a sign." Remember, it's all pointing to me, Jesus says. It's about me. It's about Jesus, about Christ. It's not about bread. And maybe by the time we get to the 5th week next week, we'll figure that out. It's not about bread. It's a wonderful gift that Jesus gives us in this very deep image reality. And instead of going there, I was finding myself playing around with the image instead of with Christ. I was sort of stuck like Nicodemus was earlier in this gospel when Jesus says, "You must be born again or from above." And all Nicodemus keeps thinking is, okay, I'm 6'2" now, and my poor mom, she's only 5'8". And how am I going to be born again? And Nicodemus is stuck in the corporal image that Jesus gives, instead of in the reality that Jesus offers in this image. So, you still got wafers today for bread. But we still got Jesus too. There was a poll taken a few years ago that asked people, what's the one phrase that you want to hear? What's the one thing you want to hear? The number one, the top phrase that people want to hear is, "I love you." Number 2, "I forgive you." We'll get to number 3 in a little bit. But I love you. Jesus says, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." There are some theologians that say that this chapter in John is incarnational theology. It's about God taking flesh. Other theologians fight and say, no, it's the Eucharistic theology. It's about our Eucharistic meal. And I want to say it's all of it. It is where the Gospel of John begins, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. "Eat my flesh," Jesus says. "This is what has come down to earth for you, is my very self." God says, "I love you." But we want to hear so much. God says, "I love you and I come among you. I take on your very flesh. I become flesh. I become." I love you. And Jesus says, that's food. That's what you hunger for. That's the bread. Chew on that every day. And the second thing, that second top thing that people want to hear is, I forgive you. So Jesus gets himself in trouble as he's talking about this, and people go, what's he talking? This is like Nicodemus going, what's he talking about? I'm not going to go get born out of my mom again. What's he talking about? He can't give us his flesh to eat. And Jesus gets them all upset and then pushes more. He throws in the blood next. He hadn't gotten there until they were all worked up here. And in fact, next week we get to the point where a lot of them just go the other direction. They go, this is enough of this, and they leave. But he offers, you got to drink my blood too. And now we're really into kind of gross vampire zombie territory, it sounds like. Part of this world that we live in now might resonate with Jesus talking this way. But he's, you got to drink my blood too. Are we uncomfortable? But what happens when Jesus' blood flows? God says, I forgive you. I forgive you. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. For God so loved the world. He sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that through him the world might be saved. I forgive you. This is food indeed. This is what our souls hunger for. I take on flesh and come among you. I love you. Pour out my life. I forgive you. And that is the gift and the nourishment that we need every day. We get reminded of it tangibly as we take the bread and the wine here on Sundays, but it's not just about the bread. It's not just about the Sunday piece. It is about our daily bread, our daily life. Chew on this. Drink it deep. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. I love you. And that life was poured out for us. I forgive you. And the number 3 thing that people want to hear, dinner's ready. And God says, the feast is prepared. Dinner is ready. All come and eat.